Let's all stand up together. This is an upbeat song. We're going to get up on our feet and sing together. All you have to do, I'll sing a phrase and you sing it back, and that is how it will go. Melissa will be singing with you. I am here in the heart of God.
I am here in the heart of God.
God is here in the heart of me.
God is here in the heart of me.
Like the wave in the water and the water in the wave.
Like the wave in the water and the water in the wave.
I am here in the heart of God.
I am here in the heart of God.
I am here in the breath of God.
I am here in the breath of God.
God is here in the breath of me.
God is here in the breath of me.
Like the wind in the springtime and the springtime in the wind.
Like the wind in the springtime and the springtime in the wind.
I am here in the breath of God.
I am here in the breath of God.
I am here in the soul of God.
I am here in the soul of God.
God is here in the soul of me.
God is here in the soul of me.
Like the flame in the fire and the fire in the flame.
Like the flame in the fire and the fire in the flame.
I am here in the soul of God.
I am here in the soul of God.
I am here in the mind of God.
I am here in the mind of God.
God is here in the mind of me.
God is here in the mind of me.
Like the earth in my body and my body in the earth.
Like the earth in my body and my body in the earth.
Like the flame in the fire and the fire in the flame.
Like the flame in the fire and the fire in the flame.
Like the spring wind in the springtime and the springtime in the wind.
Like the wind in the springtime and the springtime in the wind.
Like the wave in the water and the water in the wave.
Like the wave in the water and the water in the wave.
I am here in the heart of God.
I am here in the heart of God.
Thanks so much for singing. Have a seat.
Shh. Good morning, friends. Welcome. Welcome to Common Thread, and what a beautiful morning it is. What a beautiful day for our picnic. And I hope many, if not all of you, can join us at the Art Museum after the service. But first, if you are here, you belong. And we're so glad you made it today. If you are a newcomer, a special welcome to you. Our spiritual community is probably unlike any other you've ever encountered. And if you want to get to know us a little better, we would love to get to know you. Just click the QR code on the screen and fill out the newcomer form. And if you do, we will send you a zero-pressure email to invite you to learn more about our community and even to talk to a live human if you want. And we would love to connect with you there. So, welcome. And whether you are a newcomer or an old-timer, we all have rough days. And I have it on good authority that many of us are having some really rough days right now. So, if you are one of those folks, we've got something for you. And we're really glad that you didn't isolate and that you came here today, because that is our tendency when we are having rough days. But it's not the most helpful thing. Being here is a helpful thing. At least I hope it can be for you. And if you're having a rough time, we encourage you to reach out so that we can help you bear your burdens. And each Sunday after the service, we have a trained listener waiting in the library down the hall who's happy to help you hold what you're carrying or to perhaps help you reframe and see things from a different perspective. Today, Margie is our listener, so go see her down the hall in the library if you need a little compassionate support. And at any time, you can always reach out for help just by clicking this QR code on the screen, which will take you to a page that requires nothing more than another click. You can also find this on our website. One of our community care team members, people who have had others stand with them on their rough days, and so know how life's giving that kind of support is, will reach back out to you to see how we can help stand with you through your difficult time. So let's say together, as we do each week, if you are here, you belong. If you are here, you belong. We are every one of us carriers of the inner light. We're saying this with increasing conviction, so let's say this one with great conviction. We are every one of us carriers of divine breath. We are every one of us carriers of divine breath. Beautiful. That's wonderful. So, if every one of us is a carrier of the inner light, then let's take a moment to stand up, reach out to a fellow carrier of the inner light.
So, good morning, those of you on the live stream. We're glad you're joining us in an online way. Now, if you've been with us before, you already know what's coming next. You know I'm going to invite you. Maybe today's the day that you're going to take that step. The invitation is to connect, but to connect in a way a little bit deeper than watching from a distance, in a more personal way, live with other human beings in some small group, usually on Zoom. So here's what we've learned. In all of our online groups, what are you thinking after the lesson, or life story groups? By the way, today is the day open enrollment for life story groups closes. You might want to check out our website. A book club or an Enneagram group. Over time, online, what we have found is that we do build genuine, meaningful, spiritual friendships. But it takes time, and it takes you saying yes. So that's why I'm here every week inviting you to take that leap, to click one of those links. So even though it's not the thing we do, we don't take up the invitation of someone when they're inviting us from a screen. I really hope you'll break the pattern. I really hope you'll take a chance. Link about online stuff, that's also in the YouTube notes, and I hope you will.
And as you find your way back to your seats, again, friends. Good morning again, friends. So, before Doug comes up to lead us in the welcome prayer, Melissa's going to introduce us to a very simple and appropriate chant for what's happening around us right now. Feel free to join her if you like, or just sink into it as a prayer to ground you before our contemplative practice. And before she does this, I'd just like to invite us all into a moment of silence to hold in our hearts the people around the world who are currently suffering from the ravages of war, famine, and natural disasters, and most especially those around us who've been impacted by the devastation of Hurricane Helene.
Speak through the earthquake, the flood, and the fire. Oh, still small voice of love. Speak through the earthquake, the flood, and the fire. Oh, still small voice of love.
For our meditation this morning, let's start simply. Do this with me. Just take 3 breaths together. Find a comfortable place in your body, a comfortable place in your mind. And every time we breathe, just in your mind, use the word welcome. Breath, welcome. Let's do another 3 breaths. And this time, welcome as you breathe in. Let go as you breathe out. Welcome. Let go. And that's the welcome prayer. That's all you really need to know. Welcome. Let go. As I say frequently, the trick isn't knowing the prayer. The trick is using the prayer when we need to use the prayer. Because we need to use it in the course of everyday life when we sense a surge of energy. Energy surges often happen when some story that we tell ourselves, some narrative that we live by, something rooted in the false self has been crossed or it gets poked, when the world doesn't line up with the interior narrative that we carry within ourselves. And when that happens, often there is a surge of energy. Sometimes it feels like anger or judgment. Sometimes it feels like fear. Sometimes it's just extra energy doing stuff, maybe a little bit frenetically. Other times we focus our energy on something that will distract us from some other thing that we are trying not to look at. But however the surge comes, when we notice it happening, welcome. Let go. Welcome. Let go. We recenter ourselves to a deeper version of ourselves. Welcome. And let go. We refocus on that deeper part that we carry within. Welcome and let go. We come back to our divine center. Welcome and let go. So as we do when we practice together, I'm going to encourage you now to take a few moments of quiet, doing a quick inventory of our week and allowing to come to mind some moment when you felt a surge of energy. Go ahead and take a look at your week. Maybe it came in the form of a negative emotion or a moment of intensity, maybe racing thoughts. Maybe it was a doing the same old thing moment or a thinking the same old thoughts moment. See if there will come to mind a moment from this week where energy was surging. Together, in a hindsight way, let's look at our moments and practice the welcome prayer together. Hopefully, by practicing today, preparing ourselves to remember to practice it this week in the moment when energy surges. So picturing your moment, remembering the feelings, the thoughts, remembering the words and the actions. Let's practice together. Breathe in, welcome, and let go. Welcome, and let go. Welcome. Letting go of those habit reactions that I reacted with. Breathe in, welcome. Let go of those habit thoughts that I thought. Breathe in, welcome. Let go of those habit emotions that I felt. Welcome and let go. You will have heard there are extra parts to the prayer. You don't need to remember these, but eventually they'll probably stick. I will say them, but in your mind, you simply repeat and then welcome and let go. I let go of my compulsive need for power and control. Welcome. Let go. I let go of my compulsive need for safety and security. Welcome. let go. I let go of my compulsive need for affirmation and esteem. Welcome and let go. And I let go of my compulsive need to change the situation. Welcome and let go. Continue that pattern of breathing. Welcome. Let go. And indwelling divine, may we be less compulsed by the drivers of ego. May we be less driven by the habits that get stuck in our brains. May we welcome what is. May we let go of what need not be. Amen. Well, good morning. And thank you for participating together in that practice. Contemplative is one of the 4 quadrants of spiritual practice in the circle. And I do pray that you make contemplative practice part of your weekly rhythm, as well as the other quadrants. As they come on your radar, as there is time and place for them, make those as well part of your weekly rhythm. And maybe you will hear today, as we talk about ways to connect in the community, a way to practice something of the spiritual practices in the circle together with someone in the community. You're standing there. Do you need something? Okay. You look weird. So today, if you're online, not that weird, a different weird. Today, if you're online, we have What Are You Thinking on Zoom. You'll hear an invitation to that in a bit. Enneagram groups forming today. There's an annual church picnic today. Evening contemplative meditation this week. One-week candidate assembly. Because we've had so many things going on at the churches, we're making that transition. This transition, we haven't given as much attention to this, but boy, it's really important because this is where the candidates get to see that here's a lot of people, very organized, who are interested in 3 things. We're interested in affordable housing, we're interested in mental health, and especially as it relates to homelessness. And we want to make sure that the candidates understand that those 3 issues are important to us, and we are organized 50 different congregations together to serve those things. There's a Halloween-themed bunco coming up and a newcomers hybrid class. I'll tell you about that one right now. So that's going to be next Sunday. It's going to be in this room that now used to be a conference room. Now it's a hybrid conference room. We'll sit around the table and we will talk about what are the core shaping experiences that we've had as a community that have made us who we are. What's the future look like as Doug makes a transition out of being the primary leader? What's going to be happening, and what are the core values that we want to be holding on to? If you've never been to one of our orientations, even if you don't feel like a newcomer, please come. If you're online, we will put that on Zoom. There will be a link for you there next week, but it'll happen right after we finish this part of the service. So, yeah, there'll be a little lag for you. So here's what you could do. A full service Sunday for you online folks. You could tune in for the live stream. Then you could go to What Are You Thinking? Then you could transfer over and listen to the newcomer thing all day for you and Jesus, Here's a thing that we can all do together in our community. Everybody can be part of it, adults and teens and kids. We can all pitch in. Help us help Urban Ministries help folks in our community. Some of us could pick up grocery bags from this from grocery stores. They're donating them. Some could print and distribute flyers to Mordecai neighborhood. Folks there will have a week to put the things out, and then some can go back and pick them up a week later. Some could, particularly the kids, I think the kids are going to be doing this, decorate a box for the lobby for us to bring food for these days. Some of us could volunteer on those days that are up on the screen. Kids are welcome to the volunteer dates, by the way, so it's a great way for us to participate in serving our community. Now, nobody can remember the details of all the things that I've just run through, so you can always find them 3 places. You can go to the front page of our website, you can go to our app, or you can open up the Thursday email. So, here's what's happening downstairs right now. Jack and Haven and Shelby and Heather are talking with the teenagers about how Heather's role with the teens is going to be changing in a little bit. She's done a great job with our teenagers this last year, developing the group, building a cohesive group together, connecting them to one another, connecting them to adults who are in our community. She's laid down a foundation of how we can serve our teenagers together as a community and build our team group as we're going forward. So, here's what Heather's going to do. Let me tell you about that, and then I'll tell you what the teens are going to do. Heather's going to take a short break. She's going to have a month off. During that time, she's going to be working on applications to get MDiv. Then when she comes back, she's going to continue her role mentoring with our teens because she loves them, but she won't be responsible for the week-to-week duties that happen every week. So when she's back, she and I are going to be talking about a potential role for her that will help her gain experience in the areas of ministry that she is gravitating toward, and so that's what's going to be happening with Heather. Here's what's going to be happening with our teens. I've spent a lot of time with Shelby talking about how we approach content for our young people. You can get a sense of that on our website. There's a video series there called How We Talk to Our Kids About. And then there's, I think, 7 or 8 videos. You will have heard, if you've seen those, 60-20-20. We spend 60% of our focus on virtue, 20% on perceived needs that kids have, things like bullying and how to use your screen time, and then 20% on the distinctives of what it means to be a Christian community. How do we think about God? How do we think about Jesus? How do we think about sin? What are the ways we talk about that? Well, Shelby has a lot of experience working with teenagers, turning ideas like that into a Sunday with a lesson and some games and some activities and some discussions. So she's going to be doing that part. Jack and Haven have both worked with teenage groups before. Haven is an organizational master. I'm a little bit biased because she's my daughter, but I tell you, the woman, she can organize stuff. Jack is a connecting with kids master. And so Sue is going to be overseeing the team. And they had their first meeting last week, and there was a lot of really great energy as they begin to imagine how they could build on the foundation that Heather's built for us this year. So that's what's happening. Finally, when Heather gets back, we're going to have a proper thank you Sunday and hopefully have a little more clarity around what her role is going to be going forward. And in the meantime, when you see her, give her hugs and gratitude, and that's what's going on in the community. I think that's your turn now, Joe.
This is a song that was sung a cappella last week. We're going to fill it out a little bit with instrumentation and want to invite you to sing along. It's a very simple melody, very simple text. I will build this world from love. Da 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 da.
Will you build this world from love? La da da, la da da, la da da da. And if we build this world from love, la da da, la da da, la da da da. Then God will build this world from love. La da da, la da da, la da da da. I will build this world from love. Da da da, da da da, da 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 da. from love. La da da, la da da, la da da da. Will you build this world from love? La da da, la da da, la da da da. And if we build this world from love, la da da, la da da, la da da da, then God will build this world from love. La da da, la da da, la da da da.
A reading from the Gospel of Matthew. Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. After fasting 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. The tempter came to him and said, "If you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread." Jesus answered, "It is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God." Then the devil took him to the holy city and had him stand on the highest point of the temple. "If you are the Son of God," he said, "throw yourself down, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you, and they will lift you up in their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone." Jesus answered him, "It is also written, do not put the Lord your God to the test." Again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world in their splendor. "All this I will give you," he said, "if you will bow down and worship me." Jesus said to him, "Away from me, Satan, for it is written, worship only the Lord your God and serve him only." Then the devil left him, and the angels came and attended him. There's something in the air these days, isn't there? Can you feel it? I think in one way or another we all do. It's this heightened tension and intense energy that's got us all feeling a little on edge. Sure, I think a lot of us can point to the upcoming election as the crux of that tension, but I don't think that's quite it. I think the election is just one expression of a much bigger shift happening in our world. We've talked about it here many times before. We see it everywhere. The old ways of thinking are falling apart. Traditional structures are crumbling, and institutions are falling away. We're feeling the weight of economic stress, technological upheaval, ecological chaos, military conflicts, and cultural shifts. I mean, just look at what's happening in Lebanon or what just happened in our mountains. It's all so much bigger than us. So much feels uncertain right now. And we've been talking about how the old religious ways, the ones that promised certainty, are also breaking down because to many of us, they don't make much sense. They offer certainty, but they don't deliver on it. And in any case, as we've been discussing, real spiritual growth asks us to lean into uncertainty, to even embrace it. But let's be real. That's kind of terrifying. Not knowing what comes next, feeling insecure, feeling like so much is out of our control, it's a lot. And with all the uncertainty in our world right now, it's no wonder fear is such a powerful force driving the reactions and behaviors of so many of us. It's no wonder we collectively feel so afraid. Maybe you too are feeling unsettled or even gripped by fear right now. And in this morning's contemplative practice that Doug led us through, the welcome prayer, you might have found yourself addressing that fear even if you didn't quite realize that's what you were doing. Think back to the emotion you brought to mind during the practice. Was it anger? Envy? Anxiety? Resentment? Shame? When we take a closer look at any of these emotions, what we find at their core is fear. Take anger, for instance. So often we get angry because something we care about feels threatened. Maybe someone we love criticizes us unfairly, and suddenly our sense of worth feels shaky. We are afraid we might not be enough in their eyes anymore, so we lash out. Resentment and envy come from the same place. When we envy someone else's success, maybe a friend gets a promotion while we just got passed over, or we resent others having something we don't, like the neighbor buys that beautiful new car that we can't afford. Underneath it all is fear. We're afraid we're not enough, fearful we don't measure up. And then there's anxiety. And anxiety is what happens when we start projecting possible losses or threats, and the fear of what might happen takes over. Like the anxiety before a big presentation at work, afraid that we'll mess up and lose the respect of our coworkers, our bosses, or our clients. And those fears, they always come from a place of uncertainty, of not knowing, of feeling insecure, of wondering what's next, fears of losing control, security, or esteem. Things our ego clings to for a sense of stability in a chaotic and uncertain world, but that which we must lean into if we are to keep moving on the spiritual journey. I began this lesson with that passage from the Gospel of Matthew because I think it models for us a different way of being and maybe a different way of looking at Jesus. In Sunday school, at least I was taught to admire Jesus for his self-denial in this story because, well, he's Jesus. But even as a kid, I wondered, if Jesus is God, wouldn't he already know that all those things the devil was tempting him with weren't worth it? Wouldn't he already know he had all the God stuff already? And wouldn't it be impossible for him to take the devil's bait? What was Satan even trying to do in this story? But now, when I look at Jesus differently, the power of this story for me isn't in his divinity, it's in his humanity. He knew, just like we do, that his human self tended to be driven by the ego, and so he also knew the importance of doing the work required to loosen his ego's grip, that he might grow spiritually. That's why he went to the wilderness, I think. It wasn't about resisting an external devil. It was about facing his own internal demons. And his own uncertainties about the future, his own egoic fears, his compulsive desires for control, for security, for esteem. His time there was about clearing his vision, fasting and praying, meditating and reconnecting with the natural rhythms of creation, learning to trust the divine presence within and around him. At the end of those 40 days, Jesus was able to say, I don't need security, I don't need control or esteem, because I already have all the power, safety, and love I need. Now, of course, this story isn't just about Jesus. It's about us too. Cindy posted this book in the app a couple of weeks ago, Richard Rohr's Wisdom Pattern, saying she felt it fit in well with what we've been talking about in our recent lesson series. And she's right, it does. Rohr speaks to a pattern he calls order, disorder, and reorder as the necessary path for our spiritual growth. And in this framing, it's the disorder part that makes all the difference. It's when everything we thought was solid starts to break apart. When the old ways stop working and the ground beneath us feels like it's giving way. Disorder is that moment when we realize that what we've been holding on to, our plans, our beliefs, our identities, aren't as secure as we thought. It's when we lose a job, when a relationship falls apart, when illness comes, or when we're simply left asking, what now? It happens in our own lives, and it's happening now in our world. It's happening for millions of people right now, just to our west and our south. Cindy's neighbors, in fact, a disorder of the highest order. Disorder is a time of great uncertainty, a time when fear arises and can cause us to react in less than ideal ways, to resist transformation by clinging to compulsive desires. And we know this, it's just part of being human. We tend to grasp for control when we're faced with uncertainty, when fear creeps in. When things start feeling like they're getting out of hand, isn't our first instinct to try and manage them? We try to control our environment, our circumstances. Sometimes we even try to control the people around us, thinking, if I can just keep a handle on this, then everything will be okay. But we are very rarely in control, no matter how hard we try. Deep down, our desire for control is not about power, it's about fear. Fear that if we let go, we'll be vulnerable. Fear that if we stop managing everything, chaos will reign. Richard Rohr talks about this a lot in the book. He says, control is always about the egoic self trying to maintain its little world. It's reactive, fragile, and honestly, it's an illusion. We put so much effort into shaping life the way we want. And yet, the harder we try to control, the tighter we grip, the faster it falls away. We also find ourselves clinging to security when we are striving for certainty. We make our plans, we try to create a safe and predictable future, we plot out our lives as though we can ensure that everything will go smoothly. But we all know that no matter how carefully we plan, life is anything but predictable. And that scares us, sends our minds racing with what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. When we seek security, we're trying to protect ourselves from the unknown. But just like control, security is an illusion, and the more we cling to it, the more anxious we become. And then there's the longing for esteem, the desire to be seen, valued, and known. We want to matter. We want others to recognize us, appreciate us, and tell us that we're worthy. And in a world that measures worth by achievement, status, or popularity, it's no wonder we find ourselves constantly chasing approval. But the thing about esteem is, it's always conditional. It depends on others, on how we perform, or whether we meet someone else's expectations. And like control and security, it never truly satisfies. The more we chase it, the emptier we feel. And I can see how compulsive desires for control, security, and esteem, all of them deeply tied to our overarching need for certainty, are egoic responses that arise when we're in a state of disorder, when we are driven by fear. And the welcome prayer that we did earlier is an excellent tool to help us work with these fears in service of our spiritual growth. But here's the thing I've been thinking about lately. With apologies to Thomas Keaton and the originators of this prayer, I'm not entirely convinced that the other desires we mention in the welcome prayer, desires for power, safety, and affirmation, or love, are compulsive desires at all. Rather, like Richard Rohr does, I see them as truths that already reside within us, waiting to be uncovered and remembered as we work through letting go of our egoic compulsions on the path of spiritual transformation. I mean, what if instead of trying to control everything, we surrendered? Because if we could do that, we'd actually discover true power within ourselves. Because true power isn't about controlling, it comes from surrender. As Rohr puts it, divine power is about surrendering to the larger flow of life and finding our place in it. It's a power that doesn't dominate, but flows from presence. It's the quiet strength of trust, of being rooted in love rather than fear. And instead of grasping for security in the face of an uncertain future, what if we learned to rest in the present moment? The present is where life happens, where God meets us, where we find a kind of safety that doesn't depend on what tomorrow holds. When we let go of our need for certainty, when we stop trying to anchor our security in things like jobs, bank accounts, relationships, and possessions, we begin to see that we are already held, guided, and cared for in ways our minds can't even begin to comprehend. As Rohr reminds us, in the not knowing, there is a presence that holds us. And that's where true safety can be found. And what if instead of grasping for validation, approval, and esteem, we were able to access real love, the kind we long for deep in our hearts? This kind of love doesn't depend on anyone or anything else outside of ourselves. It's already here. When we understand this, when we remember this, we can quit striving. We no longer have to live under the burden of proving ourselves to anyone else. We can rest in a love that is unconditional and eternal. When we stop grasping for esteem and let ourselves be held in this love, Rohr tells us, we find a peace that the world cannot give us. To move beyond all these fears and uncertainties requires trust in a greater divine pattern, a wisdom pattern. Surrendering to the mystery of life and allowing ourselves to be led through the process of spiritual transformation. And ultimately, this path leads us to an ever-growing freedom from fear, as we realize that our true self is rooted in divine love, which both integrates the unique beauty and transcends all limitations of our small ego selves. Jesus' 40 days in the wilderness are a powerful reflection of this wisdom pattern, confronting uncertainty, moving through disorder, and being fully present to what is. And this state of being present right here and now, in the midst of our own tumultuous time in history, is available to us too. How do we get there? You know, I'm always going to say through contemplative practices, and that's true. It's one way. Jump on Zoom for the morning meditations. Join us Tuesday night here to chant in the chapel. Drop in to the meditation support group. Spend some time before church in our contemplative room. Whatever you do, find the spiritual practices that work for you in your life. But beyond that, here are 3 very practical ways you can begin to move through the disorder phase of the wisdom pattern, starting right now, if you want to. The first one is one of those contemplative practices, the welcome prayer. We did it earlier, and as Doug said, the trick is using it when we need to use it, on the go, in the midst of an afflictive emotion. If you think about it, looking at Jesus' time in the wilderness through this lens, it kind of seems like when he was chatting with the proverbial devil, he was doing the welcome prayer. Now, I know this can be a tough practice for some of us, and I know this because you've told me so. Just in the past few months, several of you have said something like, life is shit right now. The last thing I want to do is welcome any of it. And trust me, I get it. But here's what I want to reiterate. The welcome prayer is not about welcoming the shit. No one is asking you to welcome illness, tragedy, or suffering. No one's saying welcome cancer, bankruptcy, or a nasty divorce. What we're welcoming are our inner reactions to these circumstances. We're doing our best to sit with those feelings, to truly feel them, to sense them in our bodies rather than bypassing them. It's about welcoming the anxiety that a personal financial crisis stirs up, not the crisis itself. It's about welcoming the anger when someone betrays us, not the breach of trust. It's about welcoming the grief we feel when a loved one dies, not the illness or injury that caused their death. By welcoming these emotions instead of pushing them away, by taking the time to feel the feelings in our hearts and sense the sensations in our bodies, we stop resisting what's happening inside us, and we start to unmask the fears that hold us hostage. When we face our fears head on, they begin to lose their hold on us. Their energy begins to dissipate. They may not disappear, but we find within ourselves a deeper capacity to meet life's challenges with more openness and peace. From that place of trust, trust that we are already held in love, that we are already safe in the presence of God, that we are already enough, we can respond differently to the hard things that life throws our way. And once we've truly welcomed these inner reactions, we move to the next step of the welcome prayer, letting go, if we can. We remain patient with ourselves because we don't want to do this with our brains alone. We don't want to bypass the truth by intellectually assenting to letting go if we aren't yet fully ready in our entire beings. We have to see if our hearts and our bodies can get on board with it too, if our spirit, our soul, our very being. And we see if we can let go of the egoic desires driving these reactions. If we can, we do. In the prayer, we say, I let go of my desire for power and control, my craving for safety and security, or my hunger for esteem and affirmation. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm not entirely sure these words capture the deeper truth for me. In my own mind, I've shifted the words slightly to surrender to divine reality while letting go of the compulsive desires that are only pale imitations of that reality. I say, I let go of my compulsive desire for control in the hope of resting in divine power. I let go of my compulsive desire for security in the hope of resting in divine safety. And I let go of my compulsive desire for esteem in the hope of resting in divine love. This reframing, for me at least, helps me know that by letting go of my egoic compulsive desires, I can clear out the space that allows me to come to remember who I really am, and that what I am truly longing for is already mine. And finally, I let go of my desire to change whatever situation has me engaging with the welcome prayer in the first place, so that I might simply be present to what is in this moment, to the reality of this moment, to what this moment might work in me, to what this moment might reveal to me, and to be present to the divine presence that envelops me in this moment, which is the only moment I have. Another practical way you might consider moving through the disorder phase is to join an Enneagram group, which will begin forming after today's lesson. And if you're not familiar with the Enneagram, I certainly can't go into much of an explanation here. But I want to point out how well its framework aligns with what we've been discussing in terms of fear, in terms of uncertainty, and in terms of the welcome prayer. In very broad strokes, the Enneagram of personality holds that we each experience the world through three centers: the head, the heart, and the body. And each of these centers holds both an egoic response and a divine reality. And most of us tend to lean more heavily on one of these three centers than the others. And when we look at our motivations, reactions, and behaviors through the Enneagram lens, we can more clearly see how and where our fears and our needs for control, safety, and esteem show up. These groups offer powerful opportunities for us to better understand ourselves and those around us, not so we can be defined by our types or centers, but so we can grow through and beyond them. We'll discuss how you can join a group in a moment, but know that these groups can be a powerful means through which we might realize spiritual transformation. And the third practical step is simple: get outside. Back to Jesus in the wilderness, he didn't go to a synagogue to fast and pray for 40 days. Presumably he could have. He didn't go to a retreat center or stay at a friend's house. He went outside, alone. And although he was alone in the wilderness, it wasn't just about isolation. It was also about deep connection. It was about being in nature, surrounded by the earth, the sky, the wind, being out there away from the noise and distractions of everyday life. It opened him up to something deeper, reminding him that he was connected to something much bigger. And in that space, Jesus encountered his own state of disorder and ended up letting go of the need to control, to hold on to certainty, and instead simply be. The wilderness was a place of transformation where he could tune into the divine presence that's woven into everything, and nothing could be more available to us than going outside and sinking into that. Jesus went to the wilderness for 40 days. What if we went into our own wilderness for at least the next 30? A wilderness of quiet solitude and communal connection. As whatever disorder we might be feeling this fall, we can choose not to cast about for control, security, or esteem. Instead of watching the news or fretting about the election, we could join an Enneagram group and connect with others growing in their spiritual journeys. We can use the welcome prayer whenever an afflictive emotion comes to teach us something new about ourselves. We might consider going for a hike, tending our gardens, or just sitting underneath a tree. Whatever fears are looming, whatever uncertainty is troubling our hearts, and whatever grief, which we'll talk more about next week, might be our companion right now, let's not bypass this glorious season and try to be present to what is. And if we do these things, even just a little, we may well find ourselves slowly but surely transformed. And remember, our transformation is never just about ourselves. When we grow in the spiritual life, we do not know the impacts that might ripple out into this frightened, uncertain, disordered world of ours through our groundedness in divine power, our trust in divine safety, and our truest self-desire to be enveloped in and animated by divine love. And so, indwelling divine, may we find in ourselves the willingness to face our fears and uncertainties, the courage to welcome them, and the grace to surrender the egoic desires that drive them, that we might discover what has been ours all along, your divine life within. Amen. So, before we dismiss our friends on the live stream, here's what I referred to earlier when I said we were going to be forming Enneagram groups today. We're not going to move to different corners or anything like we did last week, but instead, we're going to click this QR code, or if you're online, go to our website or the app to find the link to indicate your interest in joining a group, along with helpful details like the times you prefer and your degree of knowledge about the Enneagram. Now, these groups require a pretty strong commitment. They last for the better part of a year. There's 3 times a month, and you'll go deep with folks and come to know some things very deeply about yourself along the way. And we'll have an open enrollment period over the next week, after which Kate and I will sit down and form the groups. And we'll reach out to the leaders to take things from there. So if you sign up, expect to be hearing from someone after October 13th for your group details. We have 13 people signed up already, which is exciting. So you can find this registration at this QR code on the website or on the Church Center app anytime this week. And folks on the live stream, we have been working hard. If you've been listening for a while, you know this, but we've been working hard to build a robust remote community. And if you're new to the live stream, welcome. I welcome you on behalf of everyone in this room. And there's a core group of regular remote community members who are eager to welcome you too. And if you're watching us live on Sunday morning, you can meet them. Just go to the link in the YouTube comments titled, "What are you thinking?" And you can join in a discussion not unlike the one we're going to have here in this room in just a minute, where we share the thoughts, feelings, and sensations that come up for us during our lessons. And I know that the folks who get together for What Are You Thinking online talk about other things too. It's a really communal bonding experience. So your discussion will take place on Zoom with some of the friendliest and kindest people I know. My friend Chris, who lives in Charleston, is leading the group today, so whether you are long distance like Chris or just joining us from your couch here in the Triangle, join him and the rest of our folks for a time of lively discussion and genuine connection. Yes, you can genuinely connect through Zoom. These people are living proof. And if you are on the couch in Raleigh, though, after you chat, maybe consider coming to the picnic over at the Art Museum, okay? We'd love to see you. And if you're watching it sometime other than Sunday morning this week, later this week, and you want to know more about our community, you'll see another link in the comments to get more information. Click that, and we'll be very happy to send you newcomer information. And with that, friends in the room, let's dismiss our friends on the live stream by placing one hand on our hearts, reminding us that the divine dwells within. That means the fruit of the Spirit, patience, kindness, goodness, all the rest, all the spiritual nutrients are within, waiting for us to cultivate and share with our world. So let's extend our other hand to our city and to our world, preparing this week to share what is in us with those around us, those with whom we live and work and go to school, everyone we encounter, taking seriously our commitment to be healers and repairers of our world. Amen. Folks on the live stream, I say this sometimes, the live stream. What I mean is the live stream. Scott can tell you something I said yesterday that was similar. Folks on the live stream, God bless you. You are dismissed. Folks in the room, I just want to encourage us all to kind of take a few deep breaths and get a little grounded. See if you can check in with what you're feeling and sensing before we talk